Welcome to Practical Principles. This is Practical Prince. So today's our philosophy segment. We're going to talk about agents and explore that concept for a bit and see where we go from there. Let me go ahead and get our whiteboard on. Yep, finally set up an account. And let's go ahead and box out the area that I'm working in. Because obviously if you can't see the notes, that's not going to be any good. Oh, yeah, that was pretty nice. Okay. All right. And I mean, we might fiddle with the definition, but it's something to do with agency, having choice, the ability to choose. What gets kind of tricky about this, I think, is how do you know if something is an agent? Because, so there's a couple of ways of looking at it. Let's see if I can throw something together. So in this, actually, we're going to need at least two. And I'll throw out a third. Oops. Don't know if I'll need it though. Because one of the simplest ways of looking at it is there is you, and then there's the rest of the world. And this is sort of the relativistic view, where you really define everything in a sense. Well, I guess relativists don't really believe in an external world, but along that same thinking, though, this is the idea where you are the only agent and everything else is deterministic in some sense. And all those people that you see and whatnot under this thinking, they are more or less machines. They're, well, yeah. So you're the one making choices, and then they react based off of whatever script, if you want to call it that, they've been programmed with. So there's one way. Let's explore. Don't be silly. Escape. There we go. Okay. Done. Oops. I wanted more circles. So what we'll probably end up running with, and then ... Maybe I'll stick a little, I could do a little dot. In this thinking, there's you, and then there's other agents who have choice. there, and we'll, or shrink that down a bit. Felt that good. I just want to select it. Not like that. Okay. I give up. And we'll do more text for another agent. And obviously, all of us existing inside the world. That one can go back to big. This second scenario can get interesting because, and this is most likely the one we'll run with, but one of the interesting things is are there only human agents? Or I would like another box, please. Or alien, animal, other non-human agents. That's going to run off. That's a problem for me. And then, of course, we still have human agents. And let's get that. Oh, nope, not like that. Oh, it's still not. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So this is one where it's like animal cruelty, intelligence of dolphins. How do we treat those if they are also agents? And if there's a further distinction, who knows, maybe that'll just be a separate topic at some point. I don't think we need this third box. So let's, is this my delete? Yes, it is. Okay. So I think the evidence is definitely against the first one because there's no reason. I mean, there's so many similarities between you and me and my parents, who I came from, me and my children, if I have any progeny. Um, there's so many similarities there that to think that I am the only agent in the world seems a bit, not a bit, highly improbable. And we can go ahead and color it. Yeah. So most likely we're dealing with the second scenario where there's you as an agent with choice, and then there's other people who, or entities, because they might not be people per se, who have choice. And then obviously we exist within and bound by the world and the rules thereof. just because they're well, I guess that touches on determinism. Just because there are rules doesn't mean everything is driven by rules. Um, so I and we've already determined that we've got to have agency, otherwise it's a moot discussion. So um, now, where do we want to take it from here? I guess we could try exploring how we might define an agent. Do we treat them different from other entities within the world? Like, for example, your pet um, might mosey on over to you because it wants some comfort and attention. Um, how do we determine that it chose to do that as opposed to acting in a deterministic way? And then stretching it even further for something like a tree, for example. Um, does it have choice, or is it just acting on a script and is killing one different than killing another, for example? Because it's interesting. I mean, because dealing with other agents, um, I mean, there's a certain amount of respect because you are the same in the fact that you both have choice and you can choose to do things. But then when you're dealing with like a tree, is that just a block in the world and you just move it and mold it as you see fit? Or is that an entity, an agent? Maybe they're both agents, but then we classify it more distinctly. Um, so I guess we'll just throw out some lines for that as well. And really, it's just where this is not a warning. Uh, same black. Okay. Let me write. We'll go with classes. And yeah, I'm leaning towards there's different classes, but at the same time, I don't want to reinforce the existing view, how we treat the world and whatnot, just because that's how it is done currently. Uh, so we'll see if we have better evidence for that at some point. I would like another box, please. All agents equal. Um, which I mean, there is. Oh gosh, equality is a topic we'll probably get into at some point. There is no equality among agents. Let's just be. Let's just make that statement there. I mean, there's this existence bound to a body and whatnot. There's this existence bound to a body and whatnot. And you cannot give them exactly the same stuff even if you had like identical twins and whatnot, the fact that they're separate entities mean they're taking up separate space in the world. So, like, even if you wanted to try to make things equal, unless you've got some quantum nightmare where everybody just overlaps. Oh, my laptop's gonna die. Um, unless you've got some nightmare where it overlaps, then it's just gonna be a mess. Hey, Thangamani. Um, before my laptop dies, let me mute and shift and get it plugged in. So, okay, back. So when we're talking about equal here between different agents in the world, um, whatever classes we might make here, there's only one, is really what that boils down to. Maybe that's just a more clear way of putting it. So there's this question, and then there's this potential follow-up question. And so, how do we want to explore those, or do we even need to? Should we just start looking at agent to agent interactions um, and leave that question maybe for another time? Let's go ahead and explore. Oh, you guys can't even see that, huh? It's off the box. Let me make myself smaller and throw myself. Oh no, not as the big screen. I just want to be in a different corner. Is that allowed? No, it's not. Um, I'll raise that up a little. All agents, one class. Doo, doo, doo. Perfect. Okay, that fits nicely. So then, now that we've got this space, let's go ahead and um, we'll do agent to agent over here. Doo, 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 doo. And I would like another circle, please. Thank you. Okay. So I guess there's obviously we're limited by what the world, the rules of the world. Um, but otherwise, there's a lot of freedom in how agents can treat each other and how they can react and whatnot. But given how we've been building things up, we can start from some of the basics we've talked on before. So you've got a body, got physical entity, presence, and let me go ahead and make this smaller so that things will fit a bit better. That's 24 is a nice number. And actually, can I shift that? I would very much like to. There we go. So you've got that. Each has an existence apart from whatever is driving them, whatever that being spirit that gives them choice. Um, and then we have um, a symbiotic. We have a we want to take care of the tool that is our body. So, um, um, is there any other rules, insights we can bring forward? If your big toe is talking to you, it's got a mouth, presumably, or something to that effect. Um, unless you're saying it's talking to you in like it's signaling pain. Yeah, if your toe has a mouth, this is. I don't know if we're going to get more comments along that, but if it's talking to you, I mean, that's abnormal for people. So you'll probably want that checked out either by, I don't know, if there's physical signs, if it like literally has a mouth, um, you might just want to see a regular primary care provider or your normal doctor to ask about it. If it doesn't appear to have a mouth, I would probably talk with a therapist because, as far as I know, that's not normal. Toes talking to you? Um, well, I mean, in either case, it could be genetic, either having, oh, but if your toe's talking to you, then where's its brain? What's communicating? That would be interesting. Um, yeah, I suppose you could have a physical anomaly in your genetics. Uh, I highly doubt it based off of my experience with other humans, but possible. Um, another potential genetic would be um, that you're just prone to um, some type of mental illness. Um, I can't remember if, gosh, there's a couple where it's like voices talking to you. It could be something along those lines. I want to say schizophrenia, but that I might be wrong there. It's been a while since I've looked at that stuff. Um, but if you're looking at a mental potential issue, then you'd probably want to see a therapist. Um, and then that'll go either a couple of different ways. Either you figure out a balance for yourself, maybe you continue to have a talking toe and you ignore it, or you just talk to it sometimes and it doesn't, because the issue is when it starts interfering with functioning in life. Yes. Unless somebody has removed it in the meantime, yes. We've got some fun people today. Yeah, because a part of the world, what we've found is that there's persistence to it. There's consistency to it. If there isn't consistency, if you don't have that sort of persistent rule, then it's chaos. And how we ever made anything out of anything, any sense out of anything, is magic as far as anyone would be concerned. So, um, so yeah, as far as what we know about the world, there is persistence. It doesn't simply go away. Um, you, I mean, apart from your sense of sight, you could use your sense of feeling, and if you have that, presumably, to check if it's there. But for the most part, you've probably just auto filtered that out. So you're just so used to it that it doesn't really register without you actively doing something. So, and then, yeah, going back to the potential side of chains, like if it starts interfering with your life, then it's a matter of uh, getting help of some sort. Um, so, and then you might need a psychiatrist for prescriptions or something like that, just depending on the nature of it and the nature of you and what switches and whatnot inside yourself are causing that to happen. So that's fun little side aside there. But going back to um, agents and interacting with each other, um, we're carrying forward what we've talked about previously with the self. Um, Care for body is interesting because um, this is um, this is where you get those reactions that are sometimes violent. Um, Eliminate potential threat, um, the violent side of things. Um, I mean, you could, I want to say cooperate. Um, the, the other thing I want to say is leverage. Um, and the reason I say leverage is that there's um, kind of a mix of these. You've got these other entities. You can, in some sense, view them as tools. They're complicated tools. Um, and there's a certain unreliability. Um, but you can simplify them to tools in a sense, and sometimes you do, um, not intentionally and not in a degrading way, just in a functional way, um, that you can use this thing to achieve some outcome. But where I prefer cooperate, I think, because there's choice coming from both. So um, presumably, you could coerce them, in which case, they are cooperating. It's just not. Mm, it's not a particularly fair deal. I think most would say. Um, because yeah, because because when you cooperate, like someone will sometimes get the short end of the stick. So like when you go to war and your squad's on the front lines or something like that, like odds are someone's going to get hurt. Where someone on another battlefront or maybe back in the rear isn't going to get hurt. Um, so there's, yeah, Can't remember where I was going with that, but um, then we'll just put a dot 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 because there might be other ways. And let's go this. Um, so I mean, here we've sort of got the life, um, the preservation of life in a sense. Um, yeah, let's preserve life. We'll go with that for now. Um, I mean, that's not perfect because, I mean, our bodies at least will give out at some point, but um, so as far as interacting with someone else, yeah, we would preserve them till they basically run out. Um, as far as end of life stuff, we would look at talking about that another time if we want to talk about that at all. Um, and then I don't know, care for body is kind of summed up in the preserve life as well, to a certain extent. Um, I don't think that entitles them to anything because you might not be able to give. That's the issue with an entitlement. Um, so would there be something else or something more specific than preserved life that corresponds to care for body? Um, and at this point, I can't think of something. If you do, let me know. Um, but yeah, I think for now. So in the rules we came up for ourselves, um, assuming that that's true for another agent, which we've purposely tried to be vague in a sense, so that stuff can um, be applied as generally as we can do it. Um, I think we would want to cross this out. Do I have a strike through? Doesn't look like it. Um, let's just draw on it. Okay. And then back. Um, so when you encounter another agent, and I guess part of the question is how would you identify an agent? Would it be communication? I think that's what we would largely do. Um, I mean, obviously, if you see something like you're inclined to think that it will have a lot of the characteristics you have. But if we try to simplify this, can we get to something more generic? How would you recognize another agent? Um, would it be that they exhibit patterns? I'm just gonna throw some stuff out. So, emit patterns, um, peer aware, can I think of anything else that isn't just these? Um, which really, I guess this focuses more on input, but obviously we can only tell that they're acknowledging what they're aware of based off of how they act. Um, and then, so let's stick that at one level. We'll throw community. I mean, there's going to be a language barrier, but that aside, um, do we even care about the attempt? No. Just as a whole communication, I think. That includes it. Because looking at something like this, you have the sunflower, which is definitely aware of the sun and follows it. And it follows a steady pattern of growing and facing the sun. But do we, if there isn't a communication going on, yeah, that is interesting. Because this, yeah, because I think if you're going to start communicating, then you can actually treat them like an agent. Otherwise, they're just another thing in the world. As far as you know, there you don't have any way of. I mean, you could influence a sunflower by blocking it or turning it around, making it change. Um, so maybe what we want is dynamic patterns. Because obviously, a plant, it's got a pretty static behavior. Um, and it doesn't really communicate in any way I can think of. So is dynamic patterns all it would take? Um, I mean, that would definitely distinguish plants and animals in my mind. Right. And I guess we should probably figure out a line between emit patterns and dynamic patterns. Because maybe an animal is just a very complicated but standard static pattern. Hmm. Yeah, that's gonna get tricky. Because what would be the threshold and who decides that? Um, and I'm not even sure if communication makes it a separate threshold because you can work out how to communicate with animals. Like there's some guy who's joined a number of prides, groups of lions, because he's figured out how to communicate with them. So does that make them an agent then? Hmm. Yeah, let's go. We'll use communication as a threshold for now. Um, but this is very loose. Obviously, it's not like they must speak English because there are plenty of other people who don't. Um, and we would still count them as agents. So then continuing on, where should we go from here? Does that lead us to different classes of agents? Which, I mean, if we're talking about animals, we've already classified the animal kingdom. Um, but with respect to agents, we'll probably go about it a different way. So we think you would identify an agent because it appears to be able to communicate. Um, and how would you know they're communicating? Well, that gets complicated, but they can read signals of some kind and act accordingly, um, like gathering to the howling wolf or something like that. And it's not to say that plants can't be agents. Yeah, I think we're naturally getting into different classes of agents. So let's, yeah. So we've got our basic, we've got communication. Um, I I have to double check about separating humans from animals, but I think the big thing was the ability to develop and utilize tools. Um, but even so, there's probably, yeah, I want to say there's some animals who will use things. Um, and maybe I'm just trying to reinforce how I currently view the world because I think of animals being, I think there being a difference between animals and humans. Um, hmm, I don't know. It might be uh, a bias. Um, oh, let me put this back down. Would tools be the threshold? And we'll probably need more something more specific than that. Um, and can we think of a class of agent above that? Um, I don't think we've got a useful distinction at this point, so we might as well. We'll run with this for now. It could change potentially, but I don't think we've got any, we don't have a reason to change it right now. Uh, so then how do we interact with these other agents? Before we get into that, I'm trying to figure out would, yeah, I don't think a rock would count as an agent in this case, just because it, um, I mean, I was thinking the pattern would be that it does nothing, um, but in that sense, it's not aware and it's not reacting. So, so we've got that. Um, we've gone on for quite some time, so I'm inclined to try breaking this down. So, what would be our next thing? I guess agent interactions. We've somewhat classified. We might solidify this next time. Um, yeah, I mean, our ability to determine whether something has choice is really difficult. We're assuming that other entities like ourselves do. Um, but then as you get farther and farther away, does that break down at some point? Yeah, that gets tricky there, doesn't it? Um, yeah. For now, we'll go with these thresholds for agents, recognizing that it's just hard to truly determine that something is an agent. Um, so I guess this would be, gosh, um, what's the word I'm looking for? This might be overly inclusive. Um, but that's probably safer than um, being too narrow. If we can deal with bigger stuff, we might as well try to do that. So, if you guys want to suggest topics or direction we can go from here, otherwise, I'm leaning towards agent interactions um, and trying to dig into that more. So, yeah, I think we'll go with that for next Wednesday. Um, we'll go ahead and end this segment here. I'll send. I need to export this. I'll do. I'll be sending that out probably tomorrow on the social medias. Um, and then, yeah, Friday we've got Talking Tarot. So if you want to talk about any of this stuff, any of your personal questions, excuse me, personal struggles, anything like that, um, go ahead and bring them up. If you want, we'll flip tarot cards. That is the popular thing to do. Um, Not essential though. Uh, and hopefully we'll get away from that sort of mystique at some point. But for now, we'll keep it going. And yeah, till then, take care. Hope to see you soon.